What's up everyone, Darcblade here with another Hunter's Guide to Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. In this video, we're going to be bringing you an endgame build, this time for the Sword and Shield. Now as always, what is an endgame build? Well, it's a build that is constructed from a lot of endgame armors, weaponry and more. They do feature talismans and Quirio's crafting, but it's not to the extent where it's unobtainable. Now as always, if you find these videos helpful or informative, please consider leaving a like on the video, as well as subscribing to the channel, as I try to bring you a variety of builds for a variety of different playstyles. Now when it comes to the Sword and Shield, it's the most versatile weapon in the game. It can do pretty much anything, and it's been made even more stronger in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak thanks to the variety of silkbind attacks it has available to it. So when building a Sword and Shield build, you can either specialise in one of the very many aspects that a build can have, or go for an all-round build. But for this build, I'm going to be focusing on a pure damage Sword and Shield build. This is a straightforward build focusing on dealing damage to monsters. It doesn't have many gimmicky skills, it has a few but not a lot. It's just designed to bring down monsters fast. So for this pure damage Sword and Shield build, first of all you'll need the Lunagoron Helm, you'll then need the Archfiend Armor Baulo, the Jaggy Gauntlets X, the Rathalos Coil X and the Ingot Greaves X. For your Petalace, this is down to personal preference, but as we are going for damage, I've gone for a Demon Petalace. The Absolute Petalace is an alternative option if you want a bit more survivability. As for your talisman, you want to go for a talisman with as much critical eye on it as possible, as well as decoration slots. When it comes to the weapon, I've gone for the Fekder's Asterism, which is the Lucent Nagakuga Sword and Shield. As for the Quirio's crafting, I've got a Rampage slot upgrade, as well as an attack boost augmentation. As for the actual Rampage decoration, go for one of the anti-species decorations, like anti-Wyvern Jaws to give you the Wyvern exploit, so on and so forth. So when it comes to the decorations, you've got a fair few to play around with, so I've gone for Sharp Jaws to max out Protective Polish, I've then gone for Tenderizer Jaws to max out Weakness exploit, Venom Jaws to max out Poison attack, Critical Jaws to max out Crit boost, a Wirebug Whisperer Jaw to max out Wirebug Whisperer, Cornerstone Jaws to max out the Defiance skill, Protection Jaws to max out Divine Blessing, and then finally I've gone for a Jumping Jaw for a point in Evade extender, although this is optional. So if you've done what I've done here, you'll have a build with a raw attack of 424 with a poison rating of 18. You have a sliver of purple sharpness with 40% base affinity, which can easily be 90% when you take into account weakness exploit. You'll also have a strong defense of 743 that is strong against water and ice, but unfortunately slightly weak to the other elements, but very weak to dragon. As for the switch skills, with the Sword and Shield I personally say they are down to personal preference. So when it comes to the main skills on this build, first of all you'll have attack boost at level 7. Attack boost is a skill that increases the raw attack of a build, and at level 4 or above gives us a percentage bonus to our raw attack. You'll then have critical eye at level 7. Critical eye is a skill that increases the base affinity of a build, allowing us to crit more often. You'll then have Defiance at level 5, which is a skill that kicks in whenever a monster becomes enraged. When this happens, we'll gain increased defenses, as well as immunity to monster roars, wind pressure and tremors. You'll then have Critical Boost at level 3, increasing the damage of our critical attacks, but only applies to the raw portion, not the poison portion of this build. And this is very useful as this build has high affinity. You'll then have Weakness Exploit at level 3, which is a skill that whenever we're attacking monster weak points, will gain a bonus 50% affinity. You'll then have Poison Attack at level 3, increasing the poison rating of this build, as well as the build-up of the ailment, allowing us to deal some unseen damage to a monster when we poison it. You'll then have Protective Polish at level 3, which is our main sharpness management skill that whenever we sharpen our weapon, will put a protective coating over the sharpness gauge, preventing any sharpness loss for a small duration of time. You'll then have Divine Blessing at level 3, which is a skill that 50% of the time whenever we take a hit from a monster, will take reduced damage. You'll then have Windproof at level 3, which negates all wind effects, however this is kind of wasted when Defiance is active. You'll then have Wirebug Whisperer at level 3, which increases how quickly our Wirebugs come off cooldown, as well as how long we can hold additional Wirebugs, allowing us to use our Silkbind attacks more often. This is very useful for the Sword and Shield as its Silkbind attacks are quite powerful. You'll then have Resentment at level 1, a byproduct of the armor we're using, but whenever we have a red portion of health on our health bar, we'll gain increased raw attack. You'll then have Earplugs at level 1, another byproduct, but reduces the effects of weak monster roars against our hunter, but again Defiance kind of overwrites this a little bit. You'll then have Evade Extender at level 1, which is a quality of life skill that increases how far we can hop, dodge and evade monsters. You'll then have Flinch Free at level 1, which negates minor monster knockbacks, as well as knockbacks from our allies. This is the main reason why I take Flinch Free. You'll then have Spirit Bird Core at level 1, which is a quality of life skill I strongly recommend, unless you're using mods on the PC version of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, where during a hunt, random spirit birds will come to your hunter, granting you their buffs. This eliminates the need to go out of your way to get spirit birds most of the time. And then finally you'll have Burst at level 1, formerly known as Chain Crit, which is a skill that when you continuously attack a monster, you'll gain increased raw attack and elemental attack. So there we have it, those are all the main essential skills for this build. But of course this is an endgame build, so it features Quirio's crafting. But like I said, it doesn't feature the rarest skills possible. Yes, it may have a point or two in some of those rarest skills like Weakness Exploit, but not every piece of armor has it. Most of the time I go for decoration slot upgrades to allow more customization in your builds. So for the Lunagoron Helm, I've got an additional tier 1 decoration slot as well as a point in flinch free. For the Archfiend Armor Bowlo, I've got an additional tier 1 decoration slot. For the Jaggy Gauntlets, I've got a point in the earplug skill, but this is a throwaway skill to be honest. The main ones are a tier 2 decoration slot upgrade as well as an additional tier 1 decoration slot. For the Rathalos Coil, I've got a point in the Spiritbird Core skill as well as a point in the Wirebug Whisperer skill and a tier 1 decoration slot. And then finally for the Ingot Greaves, I've got 2 points in Divine Blessing. But like I said, when it comes to Quirio's crafting, everyone may have different Quirio's crafting results, and what is shown here didn't take too much farming. Remember too as well that sometimes you may get alternative skills with your Quirio's crafting, in which case some of your decoration slots may be freed up. So always keep this in mind. But every build out there has pros and cons. No build is absolutely perfect. Even these endgame builds, whilst they may be strong and powerful, they may have cons in that they're difficult to craft. So when it comes to this pure damage sword and shield build, its biggest pro is its damage output. Having such high raw attack with those affinity based skills is able to take on monsters quite effectively. On top of that, this build can be used against pretty much any monster. This is thanks to the build having such high raw attack rather than focusing on elements or even ailments. Yes, it is a poison weapon, but pretty much every monster in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak can be poisoned, even those resistant to the poison, and the poison rating is so low. Like I said, the raw attack is the main focus of this build. And then finally is that this build has quality of life skills. Protected Polish, Divine Blessing, Defiance, these will all add to the quality of a hunt, making it feel slightly easier than it is. But of course there are cons. One of the biggest cons for this weapon is there are times that you may have sharpness issues. Yes, like I said, you do have Protective Polish, but we don't have speed sharpening, so we cannot put that Protective Polish on our weapon very quickly unless we're using items such as Wetfish. And the final con, which is really only a minor con to be honest, is that this is a decoration heavy build, which isn't the biggest of issues in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, as decorations can be crafted, but it's still a con nonetheless. But regardless of the pros and cons, this is a very powerful build for the Sword and Shield. Even though it doesn't feature the rarest of armors, it's able to take on all the content we currently have in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. And if you're looking to deal damage with your Sword and Shield, I'd recommend this build. But what are your thoughts? Please leave a comment down below, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you another endgame build, this time for the Sword and Shield in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.